First Man is the newest film directed by Academy Award winner Damian Chazelle and is the story of Neil Armstrong and NASA's attempt and success at getting somebody on the moon. First of all, guys, before I get into it, I have to apologize if I look somewhat like a zombie. I have had an extremely exhausting day. It's almost 10 o'clock when I'm filming this review right now, and I've got to be up for work at about 3:30, 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. So if I seem a little low energy, don't worry. I'm going to try to keep it as high energy as I can, but I might have to cut this review off early. So anyway, when it comes to First Man, this was one of my most anticipated films of the year. You can say that I'm a pretty big fan of Damian Chazelle because both La La Land and Whiplash were my favorite films the year that they came out. And Damian Chazelle has proved himself as an extraordinary talent when it comes to filmmaking. And I was super excited to see what he was going to do with this. And how was First Man? It was a very good movie. I wouldn't exactly say it's a great one, though. And I know there are many people who are saying that this is the best film of the decade, that this is Damian Chazelle's masterpiece, that it's mind-blowingly great. And I do agree with some statements that people are making. For one thing, in my personal opinion, I do think that this film is probably the best technically made film within the past 10 years. It provides an experience that not many, if any, films can give you. All the scenes that show you what it's like for Neil Armstrong and the rest of the astronauts inside of these little shuttles and ships going to the moon, and just showing you shots of the tail end of the ships that they're flying and all the pods. I mean, that stuff is great. That was probably my favorite part of the movie, besides the performances, of course. But it just provided something to make you feel like you were in that situation. It made you feel like you were there in that time period, like you were in the ship, like you were the astronaut. And whenever a filmmaker can provide that kind of an experience when it comes to their film, it's always a great thing to see. Another thing I would say that is really great about this film is the script and the performances. Ryan Gosling gives a great performance as always. I do have some negatives with his performance though, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But the person who really stole the show for me in this movie was Claire Foy. I haven't seen her in much, but what she was able to capture and do with her own personal work in this movie, I was very impressed by. Because while Neil Armstrong, as a character in this film, as a man, is very emotionless and very stoic, keeping everything locked in, Claire Foy's character in this film is the exact opposite. She's somebody who has her emotions. She has her emotions in check for sure, but she's the one who kind of lets them out and allows the emotions to flow when it is necessary. And First Man is a really interesting movie too. I mean, this is a story, I think everybody pretty much knows the story of Neil Armstrong landing on the moon, but not very many people know about all the stuff that went into preparation for NASA to be able to get him on the moon. And not very many people know about his personal life. I know me personally, although I thought Neil Armstrong was cool, I didn't know about any of the stuff that they added in here. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of research because, when it comes to films, you can't always take things at face value. But there's some things in this film that I need to do a little bit more research on, because if they're true, they are extremely heartwarming and they're extremely interesting, and they just make you want to be smarter as a whole. Now, as far as my negatives and the reason why I can't say that this is one of the best movies to come out in the past decade is the fact that, number one, it's Neil Armstrong. It's the main character that we're following throughout the entire course of this movie. Ryan Gosling is an extremely talented actor. We've seen it. From Crazy Stupid Love to La La Land, we have seen the talent this man can do. But when it comes to his portrayal of Neil Armstrong, I'm not 100% sure if Neil Armstrong was like this in real life. But Gosling's portrayal of him is very, very calculating, very methodical, and just, like I said, he keeps all of his emotions kind of under lock and key to where he doesn't exactly ever let emotions out except on very rare occasions. So it was very hard for me to feel attached to what Gosling was doing here. Another thing is, this film, the pacing in the movie, it kind of slowed down for me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Slow burn films are meant to be somewhat boring. So in that aspect, I guess I wouldn't call that a negative. But I guess the biggest problem I have with the movie, besides Gosling and what he did with Armstrong's performance, although it may have been accurate, is the time jumps. There are so many periods throughout the entirety of this movie where it will go from... you'll be in one time period, say 1961, and then it'll transition to the year 1964 without really a clear and concise cut to where it actually feels like you transitioned there. It doesn't feel like it's been a few years later, except when certain things you see with the characters have changed or certain elements are different. But it doesn't actually feel as naturally as I feel it could have. At the end of the day, everybody, First Man is a very, very good biopic. It's a very interesting biopic, and I personally believe everybody who gets the chance to see it. I have to halt myself from saying it's a great biopic, unfortunately, because like I said, the issues with all the time jumps in the film and Ryan Gosling's performance kind of taking me out of the movie, it's just one of those things where I can't push it to great. But I will say that I think everybody should see it. And at the end of the day, what I'll say about First Man is that First Man is a casual watch. Now, why don't I give it a higher rating? And that's quite simple. It's because First Man, it's a film that I don't personally think that I could ever watch again. And let the hate in the comment section and amongst my friends roll. Alright, everybody. Have you seen First Man? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or are you indifferent because you haven't seen it yet? Whatever your thoughts are, put them down in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to get in contact with me personally, social media links are up top. You can also check out the rest of my reviews in the year of 2018 right over there. The sweet podcast that I do with my buddy Zach Pope is right there in the bottom. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right there and subscribe and become part of the fray of nerds who love cinema. You all have a fantastic day.